So before we begin this video, I just have to let you know that there is one mod that actually goes with the map that adds in all the unique creatures, new creatures, skins for currently existing creatures, and so on, and I don't have it right now. You're not probably going to see it for the next couple of episodes, mainly because I played the hell out of this map before I found out about it, so I just wanted to let you know. So any comments about that, please, I know you're just not going to see it right away, but you will see it eventually in this playthrough. We last left off with my little teepee and Bartholomew looking out into the night sky. However, that didn't last long as I heard noises just outside. As I investigated, I saw a little Dilo just walking around. Well, I have to protect my little cat, right? So I started attacking the invader. It did ink me once, which is fine, I killed it really quick, and then I saw it had a baby, so I went to go tame it. Though, don't get too attached to it because it ended up starving because it was eating all the food and I had no more food to give. Well, since the day before I ended up empty-handed when it came to tames, as that parasaur didn't work out so well, I went back out to try to find something else to tame. I ended up finding another one of those Ulfens, I guess that's how you say it, and I saw it had a baby. This is perfect. Since the last one was really hard to even kill, I figured, hey, if I hit the baby, it'll come to me instead of me chasing it. After killing it, I then tamed the baby. Perfect, now I have a mount. I just have to wait for it to grow up and make a saddle, though luckily the saddle is made at a low level, so it shouldn't take that long at all. I named the little guy Ulf because he's an Ulfen, get it? Anyway, I'm not creative with names. On the way home, I tried to swim across a little channel because I was kind of like right across the river from where I tamed it, and I did spot one shark. Luckily, it was one shark and he was just out of view. He kept spawning in and out of my view distance, so I made sure to keep him that far away and quickly headed to the other side. Little Ulf grew up, I made his saddle, and he became my first mount. Now we can actually go out and explore much farther areas because I'm not having to go on foot anymore. Also, did I mention that these things are derpy as fuck? Because they are, and I still hate them, but, you know, what can you do? Can't be too picky when you can't tame a parasaur. With that being said, I do need to get more tames, so we headed out on Ulf to look for new creatures to tame. And look at that, a Carnosaur. Well, now that I have a mount, I'm gonna try kite taming it, which basically means because it is slow enough, it won't really catch up to me while I'm on a mount. So I will run a little bit of a distance, hit it with a trank arrow, and rinse and repeat. I'll keep running from it as it chases up, move when I need to, and hopefully eventually it will go down and I can tame it. It did take a while because it ends up this was a little bit of a higher level tame Carno, not completely max level tame, but more in the mid. I think he was level 60 if I remember correctly. Either way, eventually he does go down and I can tame him properly. Since he was going to take a while to tame, I decided to just hop back on Ulf and go explore the nearby areas while staying relatively close so I don't lose sight of the Carnotaur. Anyway, I did find a star giraffe, or rather just a giraffe. This is one of the modded creatures from the RR StarExoticAnimals, I believe it was, as I have star animals and I also have farm animals, but I haven't seen any of the farm animals just yet. Either way, the star giraffe is absolutely massive. It towers over me, including my Ulf, which already towers over me. But anyway, I looked around, I saw a Diplodocus and a few other creatures, but I ended up heading back to the Carnotaur to check up on him and make sure he was taming good. Eventually, he did tame up, and I named him Arno, because, again, I am very creative with names. So, Arno the Carno decided to join us on our adventure as we continued exploring. And as I did explore up the river farther from my base, I eventually found a, abandoned settlement, or a fort, or something. I don't know, but I decided to look around inside. It's actually really cool because each of the buildings, they are considered homes. I don't know if they're considered, placed foundations where you could place beds or anything inside of them, but the structure itself does provide the home buff, which means I bet if other players did play on this server, or if there were tribes of players, they could move in and live in some of these settlements and build it up. I think that would be a really cool roleplay idea, but anyway, after dropping Arno back home, I went back out to keep exploring, and I saw a deer. Well, I have to hunt the deer on mounted back after all, so I chase after it. I didn't quite get it as halfway through my hunting, I get knocked off by a fucking Microraptor. These little shits, they keep knocking me off my mounts. Luckily, Ulf is loyal and he fends off the Microraptors. I hop back on to try to look for the deer only to then get attacked by a freaking terror bird, and I kill that sumbitch and tame its baby. Well, now I've got a pet terror bird. Though nearby, I found the scene of a fight. Now that was there before I started hunting the deer, but only now did I start to look at it. It looked like a T-Rex had fought off one of the spiky boys. I don't actually know how to pronounce its name, but anyway, it looked like they had killed each other and laid there in mortal conflict. I took what I could from them, and I continued on my journey. With the farm animal mods that I added, sometimes you get what are called rainbow creatures, and I don't quite like them that much. You see how it changes color like there? It looks really cool, but it's not aesthetically pleasing to me, so I'm not going to be taming anything like this, but I just wanted to show it off real quick with this chicken that I found, which is a rainbow chicken. You'll probably see it with some other creatures too, but we instead want to tame the star creatures, as those are the ones with the natural colors. On the way back home, I found a dire bear. I killed it and saw that it had 2 babies. Perfect opportunity, so I ran after and managed to tame both of them. I named them both Ursoc and Ursol respectively. If you know where it's from, please let me know in the comments below. After dropping the bears back home to grow up, I went back out exploring, but this time I headed up north to the snow biome that I found before. I figured, well, if the blizzard is over, maybe it won't be as cold and I can explore a little bit of it. Sure enough, I was correct, and I was able to explore further. I found that there's tons of crystal, and you'll find out later that there's tons of metal nodes all throughout this biome. Going up one of the paths, I found one of the few tundra areas of the map. It was filled with mammoths, and I looked at it and said, this is going to be a perfect hunting ground for my little tribal roleplay that I planned on doing. Anyway, I kept continuing on to look for a place to live. Shortly away from the river that I crossed, I found a neat little pond. It was beautiful, had tons of cliffs nearby for protection, a water source, and it just frankly looked beautiful. I figured, this is it. This is where I'm going to be setting up my home. So now I need to go get all of my creatures and my stuff and bring them back to this location. But first, I decided to explore the nearby area. Not too far away from that little pond, I found a dire wolf. And just like the bears before, I killed the parent and tamed the baby. I had to wait for him to grow up before I could take him back home, so I sat throughout the night. I built a campfire to keep the cold away, and I just kind of chilled and went AFK for a little while. After coming back from being AFK, I decided to actually look at what the direwolves had dropped. One of them dropped a metal pickaxe, which is going to be very useful in getting my first little bit of metal to progress once I make the move over. Not too much longer later, the wolf finally grew up, and thankfully, they do not need a saddle, so I managed to hop on it and began my trip home, with Ulf following behind me. Ulf is much faster than the wolf, but that made it okay. I didn't have to really wait around for him. I could go at maximum speed for the wolf, while Ulf stayed close behind. I practiced more with hunting on mounted back, as I saw a couple of deer on the way home, though this time it was much more successful than the last couple of attempts. But now came the most annoying part. I had to pack up, put it all on my creatures, and begin the caravan over to the northern area. I grabbed everything out of my chest, I distributed it among my various creatures so they all shared a little bit of the weight. I picked up what I could from my TP, which is mainly the pestle and mortar, as I couldn't pick up the bed. I think it was damaged at some point from a creature that attacked, but it's fine. Beds are easy to make anyway. And don't worry, I did remember to pick up Bartholomew. And now was the time to start the perilous journey. Now, I did cut out a lot of this journey, as I ended up taking a wrong turn along a riverside, led me up into the middle of the continent, so I had to swing back around, and it was just a nightmare. So I spared you that details, gave you the TLDR. Eventually, I did make it back to the river that was bordering the snow biome. I crossed over it, no problem, luckily no sharks or piranhas, and I made my way to the pond that was shortly after, and began settling down all of the creatures so I could start building. I hopped on Ulf, used him to clear out all of the brush as well as gather lumber and thatch so I could start building. I wanted to build my hut mostly out of wood, though I did give it a stone foundation, as there was a lot of stone in the area that I had to clear out, so I wanted to use it for something. So with a stone foundation and a wooden wall with a thatch roof, I began. Now you see the wooden foundation at first, that was just temporary. I did switch it out with stone later on, as you'll see in the next scene probably. I went for a more rounded look. I started with a circle, but then I had a small hallway to go out one way and another one to go out the other way. This is a usual build that I used to do in Conan Exiles all the time, and I figured it would be suitable here for my more primitive, simplistic playthrough. I built a dock that went off into the pond for a short amount of distance. I also built a bridge across one of the rivers to the other side, where I'm going to be placing a lot of the more, I would say, non-roleplay friendly dinosaurs, the ones that I want to tame or have tamed, but are not, bears and wolves, something that would fit my theme. So I'm not going to get rid of them, I'm just going to put them into the timeout corner. Between the two doors where there's less space, I ended up putting a workstation there, which you'll see later on. I began taking off all of the items from the dinosaurs that brought it over from the old base and began distributing it into my new storage units. And overall, I was starting to make it more homey. I put a little bit of a fence on the back side of my house, not really any reason other than to look a little bit better in terms of aesthetics. Also, it helps keep the beavers out, as you'll notice that this pond is full of beavers and they do not stop spawning. Unfortunately, there are no fish in the pond, and that's a little bit of a bummer on my end. The preserving rack that you see here is actually from the primitive mod that I installed. Now, unfortunately, later on, I do uninstall it because of some issues that arise, but for now, it looks really cool in my hut. It serves basically like the preserving bin, but it only really works on meat. Any other items that you put in there don't really preserve as well, so I do end up making an actual preserving bin later on. But anyway, that is going to be the end of part 2. Now that I have a base set, a full-on home, I have several tames, I need to actually start farming materials to expand and grow my character. So I hope you stay tuned for the rest of my adventures in the Appalachian map, and I will see you next time. Florida Gatorman out.